This video is presented by TRACS WA, Training Centre and Subacute Care. After several ongoing consultations, Val is again meeting prosthetist Brendan Cahill to explore the options available when transitioning to a definitive prosthesis.
Okay, Val, so as we've talked about, we've now done some adjustments and we've added some socks. This prosthesis is getting closer to the time where we'll be replacing it, and we'll be moving from the interim prosthesis or the temporary prosthesis to the definitive prosthesis, which is more of a permanent prosthesis.
So it'd be a different sort of like and a...
Well, there's some different options with that, but we get a little bit more funding in the definitive stage for components and materials that help you improve your function. But we also get some funding towards making the prosthesis look a little bit more like your leg. Once we move from the interim stage to the definitive stage, it changes a little bit in the fact that we don't need a prescription from the amputee clinics. Clients come back to the amputee clinics when there is a medical issue or they require input from one of the other members of the team. But if all is going well health-wise and the client just needs prosthetic care, they deal directly with their prosthetist, who raise a prescription and a treatment quote when required, which is submitted to WALSA, approved by WALSA, and then we can commence with treatment. So I've got a prosthesis here to show you of something that might be similar to what you might be, we might make for yourself. Now there's a couple of big changes. The biggest change probably being the fact that we're going to change the type of liner that goes against your skin. So this liner takes the place of the foam liner.
Right, and the socks.
Now, you still wear socks to adjust the volume in this, but we wear the socks on the outside of this liner. Okay. So we would have some socks like this one here that actually have a hole in the bottom. Right. Now, the reason we have a hole in the bottom is because we have this little magnet on the bottom of this liner. Now, there are different liners. Some of them have a metal pin that locks into the bottom of a socket. Mm-hmm. This particular one has a magnet that attaches down the bottom of the socket, which you can see.
Oh, there's holes down there.
And what that does is that operates a little suction pump that helps keep the prosthesis on. So this prosthesis would use a suspension sleeve like you've been using already that fits over the top of the prosthesis. But that little magnet and the suction pump improves the amount of suction that this prosthesis gets, and therefore gets a better grip onto your leg. The other part of this prosthesis that will be different is the interim prosthesis or the temporary prosthesis has a solid ankle foot. This is an example of what's called a multi-axial or a dynamic foot that has some movement inside it. So you mentioned a long time ago about a running blade. Yeah. And I said at the time, well, you might get a little one. A dynamic foot may include parts like this, that is some carbon blades that allow you to have some movement and some spring inside the prosthesis, albeit sitting inside a rubber foot shell so that it looks like a foot and a shoe fits nicely on. But we can actually get a little bit of movement through such a prosthesis that under body weight we can have movement of the prosthesis, so and that allows you to keep the foot flat on the ground, but also cope with uneven ground and also have a little bit of spring back into your step. Now, wearing such a foot as this does take a little bit more strength and a little bit more balance than the solid ankle foot, but as you have been practicing over the last few months and you've really improved, that means you're ready to go to this stage to wear this type of foot. So the other part of this prosthesis, as I explained to you, is the cosmetic finishing. So what we also get is we get some funding to improve the appearance of the prosthesis. And so what we do is we actually fill the area between the foot and the socket with foam, and we shape that to match your other leg. And then we have there's a couple of different types of coverings. There can be silicone and rubberized coverings that begin to make this look a little bit more like a leg, so that you could wear a skirt or and have the prosthesis appear a little bit more like a leg. I can also do some alterations to the shoes to make them similar to each other. So once again, if you bring in the different pairs of shoes that you're thinking about and looking at, I can tell you what's suitable and what's not, and advise you of the options. With the newer style of prostheses, so using the gel liners, what we find is the prosthesis often feels lighter and more positively attached because it's got a better grip on your leg. And if it's not hanging off and if it's attached nice and firmly, the prosthesis feels a bit lighter, but it feels a bit more responsive when you want to move up steps.
TRACS WA would like to thank the staff and management at Sir Charles Gardner Hospital for their involvement in this project. This project received funding from the Australian Government.